So, full disclosure, um, since obviously I have short hair now, and when I started this channel I had longer hair, I had debated about waiting until the Tangled video to get my hair cut. But then we were going to go on vacation, and I turned into this whole thing with the getting the shorter hair and then getting the blue hair and blah 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 blah. And the blue is kind of faded at this point in time. Can't really see it that much on camera, but my hair looks kind of green to a degree. Not quite Izuku Midoriya green, but still kind of green. And so I'd been debating about doing that on the when I did the Tangled video, or like start the video with like long hair, my long hair, and then at the point in the movie when Rapunzel gets her hair chopped off, I was gonna then stop the recording there and then have my hair cut and, then come back and like cut away. And then when I would come back from the cut, I would have the short hair. But obviously that did not happen. So yeah. I mean, like, I liked what I did for the vacation thing, so that worked out fine. So this video is obviously going to be about Disney's Tangled, which came out in 2010. So the movie is 11 years old now. Yeah, this movie came out when I was graduating from high school. This movie is, of course, the Disney's take on Rapunzel. I don't know if this is exactly Pascal, who is the chameleon that she has in the movie, but it was the closest thing I had. Plus, I have two other little chameleons over here. And because Rapunzel's main weapon is a frying pan, I brought my frying pan. Because reasons. Full disclosure, I have actually whacked someone with the frying pan before. It was my ex, and in retrospect, he deserved it. But it was an accident, and thankfully it wasn't hot, and it wasn't in his head, it was his hand. And I don't think it was his frying pan, I think it was a different one. But in retrospect, no, that was funny. As I said, Disney's take on Rapunzel. This is going to be a 2-video one. This first video is going to be just about the movie. And then depending on how long it is by the time I'm done talking about the movie, then it will either be, the rest of it will all be in a separate video where I talk about the animated series, the film short that they had, her other appearances in like other Disney media, and then the Once Upon a Time stuff. We'll see. But for right now, let's just focus on the movie. So, the movie begins as being narrated by Flynn Rider, saying this is how he died and everything. But then it's like, no, it's fine. It's actually a good story. And then he's explaining, one time there was this drop of light that fell from the sun, and it bloomed into this beautiful magic golden flower. And it was found by this old woman who then used it to make herself young again. So we get that, instant, she has to sing a healing incantation and it heals her. Then, several hundred years later is when this beautiful kingdom built up, and it was called the Kingdom of Corona. Which Corona is, of course, nothing to do with the coronavirus. The dog is clicking in the hallway. Nothing to do with the coronavirus. It has to do like the corona of the sun, as in like the outline of the sun. And so that was the kingdom that got built up there. And the queen of the kingdom, the kingdom was ruled by a very beloved king and queen. And the queen grew sick when she was with child. And, they sent everybody out to try to find this, legendary flower or something. And they did find it. The woman had been keeping it hidden. We find out the woman's name is Mother Gothel. She'd been keeping the flower hidden for the past several hundred years in order to just simply use it for herself. And what ends up happening is, the flower gets taken by the guards, they uproot it, and they take it back to the castle, and they use it to heal the queen. She's healed, she gives birth to a beautiful baby girl that is named Rapunzel. And the little princess is born with this beautiful golden hair. And the king and queen, in honor of their daughter's birth, send off this lantern. As these beautiful lanterns that float through the sky. They send off one, and I think the rest of the kingdom probably sends off some as well in honor of the princess's birth. something that the whole town can enjoy, the whole kingdom can enjoy and everything. So I kind of like that as opposed to just, oh, we just had a fancy dinner and we just invited all of the nobility and nobody else is allowed to come in. Um, and then that night, a much older version of Mother Gothel sneaks into the castle because apparently their guards are not designed to be able to stop old women from sneaking into the castle. And she sneaks into the castle. She finds the baby in the crib. She sings the song that allows her to, return her youth. And she then, and Rapunzel's hair as a baby starts to glow. And she then tries to cut it because she's like, okay, well, if I can keep a snippet of it with me and it will continue to heal me, then I'm fine. But she snips it, and the part that she snips, the hair turns brown, and the power dies, and the hair stops growing. And Mother Gothel is like split-second decision of, okay, well, that's not working, so she just literally kidnaps the baby. And she flees into the night, and, Rapunzel's parents send the guards and everybody and probably other people in town probably go after to try to find her. And, she goes and she hides in this, 70-some foot high tower that I don't know where this tower came from. It seems to be quite old, so maybe Mother Gothel had lived there for a while to begin with at some point. She's, like several hundred years old, so she could quite easily be able to, have this tower at some point, and then she leaves the tower for a while, and then she comes back and she just uses it as a place to hide or so. And she keeps Rapunzel in the tower sealed away. And she keeps using, of course, she sings the healing incantation and she teaches Rapunzel the healing incantation. So that way she can use, as she brushes Rapunzel's hair, she can use that power to make herself young again. Because she's obsessed with staying beautiful. Staying young and beautiful. We cut to, we kind of watch Rapunzel grow up a little bit. And it's, she's trapped inside the tower walls because her mother's is like, no, everything out there is horrible and humans are mean and horrible and ruthless and monsters, and you can't go out there because they'll want to get you for your hair, because she made up this thing. It was like, oh well, they want to take your hair and use it and cut it and sell it and everything. And Rapunzel, because the only person that she's ever interacted with is Mother Gothel, she believes her. And what happens from there is, as she grows up, her hair, continuously grows. And but the only thing that seems odd is that every year on her birthday, these floating lights appear in the sky. They're not directly by the kingdom. They're a little ways away from the kingdom, but as the lanterns fly through the sky and float through the sky, because every year on her birthday, the king and queen send out hundreds and hundreds of these, lanterns and everything. Hope that their lost princess, their lost daughter, will return. And the kingdom, because the king and queen are such a good king and queen, and they treat their people well. And in the animated series that goes along with Tangled, which will be either talked about at the end of this episode or this video or the other video, depending on how this goes, we see that the people very much adore their king and queen, and Rapunzel later on. But the king and queen continue to be a good king and queen, but they are still very much sad and disheartened in the fact that their daughter is gone. Rightfully so. But every year on her birthday, Rapunzel sees the lanterns floating through the sky. And the thing is Mother Gothel could have saved herself so much trouble by just lying to Rapunzel and saying, no, that's not your birthday. This other night of maybe 2 months later or something like that is your birthday. But story plot reasons, Gothel never thought of that. And 18 years later, we cut to Rapunzel, and she's still living in the tower. She still only has her only friend, the chameleon, Pascal. Trivia fact, Pascal is actually named after a chameleon that one of the people that worked on the movie had. The lady had bought a chameleon that day and had named it Pascal. And when they were going in and discussing what kind of animal friend Rapunzel should have, a chameleon came up, and she named it. She had her chameleon named Pascal that she bought that same day, And the directors were just like, hey, can we use that? And she's like, sure. So she like uses her chameleon as like reference for Pascal, which I just find adorable. Um, I don't remember what her exact role was on the movie, but I think she's also credited as like chameleon handler or something like that. So that's just adorable. And, Pascal is, the color changing chameleon, jumps around, hides in all the different colors and everything. And we get a look into Rapunzel's life. She has a very dull life. She has like all of the stuff that she does to keep her entertained, but she's done so much of it for so long that she gets very bored with it. We have the song "When Will My Life Begin" is the first main song of the movie. It's she's talking about she has this 70-foot long extremely strong hair, and she uses it to loop through these systems of pulleys and hooks and everything that they have around the tower that she uses to like hoist herself up all around the tower. I'm assuming some of this comes from the fact that Mother Gothel may have helped her build this, or she just built it on her own while her mother was out. Because Gothel continues to like leave the tower, is lowered down by Rapunzel's hair and then brought back up by Rapunzel's hair, day in and day out. And, they all live, they live in this tower. I mean, admittedly, it's a quite nice tower to live in if you have to live in the tower. It could be a lot worse. Rapunzel has food. She has plenty of stuff to keep her entertained. She paints all the time. She's covered like the walls of the tower of like her room and the main room, and probably not her mother's room, but like her room and the main room and everything with like all these different portraits and everything that she's painted. We see like she's tracked like star charts that she's made all around the top of the all around the top of the tower. And so it's a very nice tower. There's, ovens that she can use to cook because we see her baking. We see her, as I said, we see her painting. I was going to bring up some of my paints, but I couldn't dig them out because I paint sometimes. But, we see all of the stuff that she does. She does like paper mache stuff. She makes candles. She, brushes out her 70-foot long hair, of course. We see all the stuff that she does. And like Pascal is there, like they play chess, she dances, she, all this other stuff that she does, she reads books, all in an effort to keep herself, entertained, whenever her mother is not there. And, she seems to be quite good at a lot of stuff. She's had a lot of time to perfect this stuff. I mean, there's the old saying, it was like, give someone 1,000 hours of practice and they will eventually become an expert at something. So, she's had a lot of time to spend getting used to making all this stuff. She even makes like dresses, like little tiny dresses for Pascal. And he does not look amused by any of it. But like Pascal keeps wanting to go out and explore, but of course she's like, no, we can't go out there and such. It's like there's all the horrible people out there and mom won't let me go out and everything. And her dream is to go and see the floating lanterns because she sees them on her birthday and she paints this mural of the floating lanterns, and she, her dream is to go and see them. And she would like her mother to take her to go and see them, but Mother Gothel returns to the tower. At this point in time, we see Rapunzel, lower her hair down and raise Mother Gothel back up. And Mother Gothel, simply just because of the fact that Mother Gothel is the only other human that Rapunzel has been around for the past 18 years, give or take a couple of days, Rapunzel very much trusts Mother Gothel, and Mother Gothel has kind of like instilled that into her. I know a lot of people put like Beauty and the Beast as like Stockholm Syndrome, but I would put this a little bit more in Stockholm Syndrome, but it's also like Rapunzel doesn't know any better. Everything that she knows about the outside world is what Mother Gothel tells her. And Mother Gothel, she continues to use Rapunzel's hair to turn herself young, and we see her do this. She, has Rapunzel sing, and she brushes Rapunzel's hair, and she makes herself young again. Kind of a continuation thing of like, she just continues to do this again and again and again, and that's why she kept Rapunzel around for all this time frame. And what ends up happening is, Rapunzel tries to convince her mother to take her to go see the floating lights. And Mother Gothel, of course, won't have any of it because she knows that Rapunzel is, of course, the missing princess from the Corona Kingdom. And if she takes Rapunzel there, there is an extremely good chance that she will be recognized as the princess. And if that happens, then they will, of course, take Rapunzel away from her and lock Mother Gothel up. And Mother Gothel will no longer be able to make herself young again, and she will eventually die, and Rapunzel will be, turned into the princess like she should be. So, Mother Gothel, refuses to do that, and she, eventually, she's, very manipulative in how she talks to Rapunzel, and this is where we get the song Mother Knows Best. Where it's she's talking about how horrible and dangerous the world is and everything, how it's her job to protect Rapunzel, and how she would do anything to protect her daughter, and keeping Rapunzel gullible and helpless and everything, is saying that she's gullible and helpless and that she should never leave the tower. And Rapunzel agrees because she's kind of she doesn't want to disappoint her mother and everything. But it's also, her mother is kind of trying to instill the fear of God in her, and you leave, you'll break my heart type of a thing. And Rapunzel, agrees to stay in the tower. Then, of course, Mother Gothel goes down again to go, and, she gathers food and she does other stuff. I would assume that Mother Gothel herself may go into the village, may go into the kingdom at some point to get different supplies and stuff like that they need. And then bring them back to the tower. But for the most part, she probably mostly just forages and such. And, this is where we are more introduced to Flynn Rider, who is a thief/adventurer who is, he's trying to sneak his way into the castle along with the two Stabbington brothers. Great name. And they're going to break into the castle and everything because they're going to try to steal this crown, the tiara or so of the lost princess, which is kind of this prized possession and everything. And, Flynn, kind of Mission Impossible is lowered down into the area where the crown is, and he steals it. And then, of course, the guards see them, and the three of them are running away. And they keep seeing all these wanted posters all over the place. And the Stabbington brothers ones look fine, but every time that we see a different poster of Flynn, he has a different nose. It's crooked or bent or really pointy or really big or whatever the case is. And Flynn is just oh my God, that's not fair. It looks horrible and everything. And him and the brothers are trying to escape, and they come to this dead end, and the two of them try, Flynn's well, if you lift me up and everything, then I'll pull you guys up. And they're well, then give us the satchel that has the crown in it. And, Flynn, gives him the satchel, and then he climbs up, and then he reveals that he stole the satchel, and then he runs off. And we have him running through the forest, and we have them being chased by the guards and their horses and everything, running and running and running, trying to, try to catch Flynn and catch the two Stabbington brothers. And what ends up happening is Flynn somehow ends up on top of Maximus, who is the leader of the guards' horses, who's this, very white, beautiful stallion that takes his job very seriously. And via that, Flynn and Maximus end up kind of chasing each other, and the tiara gets kind of separated, and they end up falling from this very high cliff because Disney logic, and neither of them die or are extremely hurt. And Flynn manages to escape into this clearing, and Maximus goes off one way, and Flynn escapes in this clearing, and he finds the tower, and he uses two arrows that he found to climb up the side of the tower. So I'm okay, that's good. And what ends up happening is, of course, he makes his way into the tower. It's Rapunzel's tower, obviously. And he gets inside, and he's ready to just hide in the place for a little while, and then he gets hit on the back of the head by a frying pan by Rapunzel. Now, admittedly, hers is probably a cast iron type thing. I don't know if this one's cast iron or not, but it's a good frying pan for the most part. But she whacks him with the frying pan and knocks him out, and then she inspects him a bit. He looks normal, checks his teeth, because Mother Gothel says, oh, they have these pointy, sharp teeth, and she looks at his teeth and they're normal. And Flynn kind of starts, and she's oh my God, I protected myself by knocking him out with my frying pan. And she then, is just I can defend myself, so I can go out. I can use this as a way of proving to my mother that I can do this. And Flynn kind of starts to wake up, and then she whacks him in the head with the frying pan, and then she ends up, funny sequence of her trying to put him into this wardrobe that they have, which is just funny to watch. And it's like just funny trying to get him into the wardrobe again and again and again until eventually she does get him into the wardrobe. And she kind of has to, like, lock the wardrobe or so to make sure that he doesn't fall out, because he continued to do that. And she also finds a satchel, and she finds the crown in the satchel. And she, first she tries it on as a bracelet. No, she tries to look through it. No, and then she puts it on her head, and she looks in the mirror. And it's like, And then, like, she hides it. And, this is when Mother Gothel shows back up. And she planned to show Mother Gothel Flynn to say, oh, I can protect myself. I'm not as helpless as you think. And that I should be allowed to go and see the floating lanterns. And, the floating lights. She doesn't know that they're lanterns. She calls them lights. And, Mother Gothel keeps saying, no, those are stars, dear. Trying to, just make Rapunzel forget about it or so. And what ends up happening is, Rapunzel tries to convince Mother Gothel to let her go again, but it doesn't work. They just continue to fight and everything. And eventually Mother Gothel just kind of snaps at her. And, she gets the line, now I'm the bad guy. No, you've been the bad guy from the beginning. That is the exact purpose of this movie, is you were the bad guy from the beginning. You kidnapped a child because you wanted to stay young. I know, whole point of that line. And Rapunzel then changes her idea, and she's like, and instead of the stars, she, like, acquiesces to her mother, and she's like, instead of that, how about you bring me new white paint that I can use and everything, that's made from this, these certain shells and everything. And Gothel's like, well, those are like a 3-day trip from here. And Rapunzel's like, I promise I won't leave and everything. And she's like, okay, fine. And, Gothel heads off on the trip to take, the 3-day trip and everything to, and a 3-hour cruise, if we're going to go for a Gilligan's Island reference. But Gothel heads off, and of course, we get these interactions between Rapunzel and Mother Gothel that are, it's like, Mother Gothel, I love you more. No, I love you, and then Rapunzel, I love you more, and then Mother Gothel, I love you most. And whenever she says that, she's always touching Rapunzel's hair, stroking it or kissing the top of her head where there's hair and everything, which is implying that it's like, okay, she kind of loves Rapunzel, but she just loves Rapunzel's hair. And that if she could have kept Rapunzel's hair the way that it, was, and just, like, chopped it off of her and just used the hair and not worried about, it not having power, she would have just literally probably, like, shaved Rapunzel's head when she was a baby. Or just kept whatever chunk of it she could have gotten from, cutting it off when Rapunzel was a baby, as opposed to just kidnapping the baby. But this leads us to now. And, Mother Gothel heads off, and Rapunzel then decides that she is going to just, have this, this, stranger that she's bashed with a frying pan now, help, take her to where the lanterns are, where the floating lights are. And she gets him out of the, cupboard, out of the wardrobe, and she ties him up on a chair with her hair. And then she basically has, like, this interrogation type scene that she uses, which is kind of funny because, like, Pascal's there and everything. And she just, we get this whole funny sequence between the two of them. And she's like, why are you here? Were you here for my hair? Who else knows about my location? He's like, I don't know anything about your hair. I just want my satchel, and I just came here to hide. I didn't know that there was anybody in this building. And, like, eventually they end up, via different things, she's like, okay, I will give you your satchel if you take me to see the floating lanterns. You can tear this tower apart, but you will never find the satchel. Flynn gets hit in the head with the frying pan a few more times, and she continues to kind of threaten him with the frying pan multiple times throughout the whole course of this interrogation technique. And Flynn kind of attempts to try to, like, charm her, like, hi. And then he tries to use a smolder, and it's like, no. And at one point he gets dropped on his face, and he's like, "You broke my smolder." um, and they end up, he agrees to help her and everything. And, she then leaves the tower with him while he climbs down the tower. And then she lowers herself down from the tower. And we get the reprise of, when will my life begin? And it's her just like looking all over the place and like seeing all this stuff, like running through the grass and running through the flowers and, stepping in the pond and everything, stuff that she's never gotten to do because she's been locked in the tower for the past 18 years. And the time frame on this is that the floating lanterns are supposed to go up the next night on her 18th birthday, so she's like 17 years and 364 days old or something like that, unless it's a leap year. Yeah. But they continue. She's like wandering around the area that she's like seen from her window, and this like little gorge, gully, valley type thing that she's lived in for the past 18 years and never actually stepped foot in. And she's roaming around, and we start seeing these moments where she goes from up to down to up to down to up to down to up to down, like, oh my god, this is so nice. Mom is going to be so angry at me. Oh my god, this is the best day ever. I am the worst daughter ever. Oh my god, I'm so happy. Oh my god, I'm such a terrible person. And just like up and down in regards to like bipolar much, kid. I know that's not exactly the way that bipolar works, but I just like how they're just like, she's up, she's down, she's up, she's down. And like Flynn then tries to convince her that, okay, how about instead of me doing this, we just go back to the tower and you pretend like you've never done this. It'll, you don't have, your mother won't ever find out. She won't ever have her heart broken and blah, 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 blah. And Rapunzel just basically is like, no, I am going to do this. And they head off. And, first they end up almost getting attacked by a rabbit. It's a rabbit. She thinks they're going to get attacked. And then Flynn uses this as an idea of like, oh, I know exactly what to take you, because she doesn't be around any ruffians or bad guys or anything like that, because those are going to scare her. So he's like, okay, well, if I take her to where the ruffians and the bad guys are, that should scare her. And they start heading one way. During this time frame, we see Mother Gothel wandering through the forest, and she comes across Maximus, who is currently searching for Flynn. Gothel realizes that he's a horse from the palace, and that his rider is not with him. So she runs back to the tower, and she calls up, and of course the power, Rapunzel's hair does not come down. So she then has to dig in through the entrance of the tower, because she like blocked it off with like rocks or something like that at some point, and like sealed it away, and she has to climb up through the tower and gets to the top, and like Rapunzel is not there. And she finds the satchel with the crown and with the Flynn's bounty poster, and she thinks that like Flynn kidnapped Rapunzel. So she grabs a knife and she heads off to go and try to find them. Rapunzel and Flynn then make their way to the pub thing that is called the Snuggly Duckling. And, they get inside, and she thinks that it's about ducks. She's like, I like ducks. Yay. And then, they get inside, and she like sees all of these, tough looking, angry men that, like they have hook hands and, big helmets that look like Viking helmets and scars and like tough guys and everything. And Flynn tries to, uses this as a way to try to convince her that maybe this is not the best idea, that maybe you shouldn't be doing this. And the thugs recognize Flynn from the bounty poster, from the reward, and they're like, okay, well then how about we just, hand him in and we can all get the reward. And like they start fighting over who's supposed to get the reward, and they sent one of the thugs off to go and find the guards. And they're trying to, they're going to try to beat up Flynn, and Rapunzel uses her hair to like whack the lead one, hook hand thug is what he's just called, uses that to like whack him in the face with like something from inside the bar, inside the pub. And this, gets their attention on her, and she's like, you can't take him. I need him to be my guide. And like, she just like does this whole thing. I was like, haven't you ever had a dream and everything like that? And this is where we get the song I've Got a Dream, which is Rapunzel and all the thugs singing about like their dreams and like what they like to do outside of being a thug. And like, we have the hook hand guy, and he's like, I have this dream. I wanted to be a concert pianist and everything. And he starts playing on the piano that they have in the bar, in the pub, and he's really good. Even with having one hand and a hook, he's like, just like back and forth all over the piano and like singing along. And then they start going through the different thugs. Like, there's one that's got like a big nose. Like, he wants to fall in love. He wants to have a love connection. And then we have, let's see, just based off the lyrics, we have Toll would like to quit and be a florist. Gunther loves interior design. Ulf is into mime. Attila's cupcakes are sublime. Bruiser knits. Killer sews. Fang does little puppet shows. And Vladimir collects ceramic unicorns, which this whole sequence is just so funny. I love this sequence throughout the entire movie. It's not my favorite sequence in the movie, but I still love it because it's just like, yeah, let's have all of these really big tough guys, just like, they all have like soft sides. They all like the stuff that they want to do. They have the stuff that they want to be. And like, we get flashes of it, so that's really nice. And like, they're singing and everything. And, Rapunzel's like, I want to see the floating lanterns gleam. And then they look at Flynn and they're like, what's your dream? And he's like, oh, no. I don't sing. And then they all have like other swords pointing at him. And then he starts singing. He's like, I just want to have an island, be on my own and everything. And like, they're all very supportive of Rapunzel with this. And then, the song finishes up. Partway through the song, we see Mother Gothel appear, and she sees through the window of like Rapunzel and Flynn and the others singing with each other. And she had been initially thinking that, okay, it may have just been that like Rapunzel was kidnapped by Flynn. And if that was the case, she wasn't going to punish Rapunzel. She was just going to like, get her away from Flynn and then take her back to the tower. But she finds out that Rapunzel, of course, left the tower willingly. And she doesn't like that, of course. And we see, the guards show up, and the guards show up, which is not good. And they start searching the place for Flynn, and Maximus shows up there too, because he's like a horse crossed with like a bloodhound or something, because he's like, he like sniffs all over the place and he's really good at finding stuff. A lot better than some dogs that I know. Rapunzel and Flynn, hook hand thug, helps them escape through this like escape tunnel that they have. And they're going, and he's like, go, follow your dream. And Flynn's like, I will. And he's like, I wasn't talking to you. Your dream is stupid. I was talking to her. And like, they head off down the pub, down the tunnel and everything. So like, they're Rapunzel's allies now. And they head that way, and they're making their way through the tunnels, and Maximus ends up helping the guards find their way in, and they get through the tunnels as well. And the Savington brothers were there, and they escaped, and they go through the tunnels as well, or work their way through to where the different tunnels are going to be coming out, or whatever the case is. And one of the other thugs, who's like this old guy, goes outside, and like Mother Gothel's there, and she like kind of flirts with them. And he's like, I need a glass, because there's a tall drink of water out here. He seems drunk most of the time anyway. And she's like, oh, thank you. And then she pulls out a knife and like sticks it on his nose. She's like, now tell me where that comes out. And he's just like, knife. And so she goes off. Rapunzel and Flynn are making their way through the underground tunnels that lead out of, that end up leading to this dam. And, they're kind of talking a little bit, and then the guards show up, and they're chased out of the tunnels and into the dam area. Dam. It's an actual dam, so I can say the word dam, and nothing's going to happen. But what ends up happening, and also I'm far enough in this video, that shouldn't be an issue. But she ends up, using her hair to, like, swing around, and Flynn ends up grabbing the frying pan, and him and Maximus end up sword fighting. Well, Maximus has a sword, Flynn has the pan, and they're like sword fighting and pan fighting. And he's like, this is the strangest thing I've ever done. I'm like, yeah, you're sword fighting. Yeah, you're fighting a horse that is using a sword with a frying pan. So yeah, no, this is the strangest thing you've ever done. And you know, like Rapunzel's swinging around, and she, you know, then she tries to save Flynn, and then they end up like the dam ends up collapsing, and like the water comes closing in on everybody, and like the guards are kind of getting washed away, and Maximus and the Stabbington brothers are there, and they get washed away. And Rapunzel and Flynn are kind of getting washed away. Like, and Pascal is with them because like Pascal like holds on to like Rapunzel most of the time. And they're like getting, you know, they get kind of into this. They try to outrun the wave, and they hide in this cave, and the cave gets flooded. And unfortunately, a bunch of rocks like block off the entrance, so they can't escape that way. And the water is slowly filling up around them. And we get this kind of like confession sequence where it's just like, you know, it's like, well, you're gonna die. You're gonna tell something confession. You know, if you think you're gonna die, you're gonna tell something to the person that's in there with you. And Flynn says, Flynn Rider isn't my actual name. My real name is Eugene Fitzherbert. Eugene is not a bad name. The Fitzherbert is where I get slightly more concerned. But it's just like, my real name is Eugene Fitzherbert, and somebody should know. And she goes like, and Rapunzel's like, I have magic hair that glows when I sing, and like they can't see anything inside of the cave. So she's like, I have magic hair that glows when I sing, and she starts singing, and her hair starts glowing, and fills in the area where they are. So it actually glows enough so they can see, like, and they see this like pull of the water where there's like, if we go through this little section here, like dig through these rocks, and they dig through the rocks, and they're able to break through and escape, and they, you know, escape drowning, and they make their way out. And, you know, Flynn kind of freaks out once they're out of the cave, and he's like, her hair glows. Oh my God. And she's like, it doesn't just glow. And then they're, you know, you know, we get a scene cut, and we cut to where, Mother Gothel is running outside of the exit tunnel for, like, the tunnel that comes out of the Snuggly Duckling. And the two Stabbington brothers come out, and she hears them talking about, like, going after Flynn and getting their revenge and everything and stealing the crown. And she decides to use this to her advantage. So she, you know, tosses him the crown, and she's like, well, you know, I can give you can take the crown. I was going to offer you something so much better, and, you know, can get revenge on Flynn. And he, you know, she then, you know, they agree to work with her. And then we cut to where Rapunzel and Flynn are sitting by this campfire, and Rapunzel has taken part of her hair and like wrapped it around Flynn's hand because earlier his hand got cut. And she wraps her, you know, hair around it, and she gets ready to, and she sings the healing incantation, and it heals his hand. And he's just like kind of very, very concerned about this. And she explains that, well, when I was a baby, people tried to cut it. Mom says people tried to cut it, and it, you know, it stops growing and it goes brown. So Mom, you know, hid me away in the tower and everything, you know, or else it'll, you know, my hair, if it's cut, it loses its power. And, you know, so, you know, that's why she's been locked away from the outside world, to protect her from people trying to steal her hair, which is, of course, a lie, because even if Rapunzel's parents knew about the power, I don't know exactly what her parents would have done. That is a very good question that I might pose a little bit later. But, you know, Flynn then tells her about his backstory. And, you know, it's like he grew up in an orphanage. He was an orphan, and he became a thief because he had read all these stories about this, you know, adventurer named Flynn Rider, named Flanagan Rider. And how he had like all this, you know, he was a hero, and he had like all the money he could ever need and everything. And he was just this amazing adventurer. And how he had wanted to be just like him. So that's why he ran off and changed his name to Flynn Rider and everything. And, you know, he goes off to get firewood. And this is when Mother Gothel appears. And, you know, this is at night and everything. So it's very dark and eerie and everything. And, you know, Mother Gothel tries to, like, guilt Rapunzel into coming with her, and, you know, blah, 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 blah. Like, Flynn can't possibly like you and everything. You know, he's just doing this because he wants to get the satchel, and he gives her, you know, Mother Gothel gives Rapunzel the satchel. And, you know, Rapunzel and Flynn have started to connect at this point in time, and Rapunzel thinks that Flynn might actually like her. And I think Pascal does see that Mother Gothel is there. I don't remember if Pascal doesn't see it or not. I don't remember. Um, but, Mother Gothel is like, okay, just, you know, fine. Give him the satchel at some point and see what he does, because that's the only reason he's doing this. And, Mother Gothel then goes off, and Flynn comes back, and Rapunzel has hidden the satchel that has the crown in it, and Mother Gothel and the two Stabbington brothers are kind of watching from the side. And, the next morning is when Maximus shows up, and he's like dripping wet from, escaping the flood from the dam. And he, Maximus is there, and he attacks Eugene, and Rapunzel manages to get him back, and her and Maximus basically end up having this, moment where they connect, and she basically kind of treats him like a dog a little bit. It's like, sit. The horse is better behaved than the dog that I own. I would have liked it if he was in here for this part of the video, but that's not happening. Because, like, Maximus will sit. Maximus will drop the toy. Maximus will be well behaved. To a degree. I can get Rainy to sit, but it's annoying at times, and it's very hard to get him to drop whatever toy it is that he's playing with. He'll, yes, I'm talking about you. And what ends up happening is Rapunzel convinces Maximus to, it's just like, this is a really important day for me, and I really need him to help me. And then after it's all finished, you two can continue to, fight or whatever. I just want to see the floating lanterns. And Flynn had even said earlier, when Rapunzel had mentioned the floating lanterns, he's like, you mean the floating lanterns they do for the princess? And she's like, oh, that's what they are. Okay. So, Flynn hasn't exactly put two and two together, but I don't know how much Flynn knows about, like, the Kingdom of Corona. I don't know exactly how much he's aware of their history, beyond the fact of, obviously, he knows about they do the lanterns every year for the princess. And he didn't put two and two together about, Rapunzel has the same birthday as the princess, and she's about the same age as the princess, so Flynn didn't put those two together yet. He does in a little bit, but he doesn't do that quite yet. But what ends up happening is, Maximus agrees, and him and Flynn and Rapunzel and Pascal are headed into the kingdom, into the, the capital city area of Corona. And what ends up happening is Flynn and Maximus kind of try to fight each other a little bit at one point, but they kind of behave themselves for Rapunzel. And when they first get into the town, Rapunzel's hair, because it's so long, keeps getting in the way of everything. So they see these like four little girls that are braiding each other's hair, and they get the girls to like braid Rapunzel's hair, which I love the braid that they do with their hair. I think that it's so pretty, because they just, like, it's so many, like, a layered braid, and they put like flowers in it, weaving it together and everything, and it looks great. I would never want my hair that long, but I mean, they did a great job with it. I don't mind braids in my hair, but obviously it's too short to do a lot of braiding now. But braids don't last very long in my hair, unfortunately. But, Rapunzel and Flynn then go off, and they have this fun day of like, having fun in the town and everything. And, like, they get a dance, and she gets to, like, draw this big, picture all over the ground of, like, the symbol of Corona, the flower that they have for the symbol. And she, gets to see this mural, this, like, tile mural that they have of, like, the king and the queen and the princess. And she sees the little baby with the blonde hair, and Flynn buys her this little flag that has, like, the symbol of Corona on it, the castle, the symbol of it, which is, like, the symbol of the sun. And he buys her that as a memento, and, like, they're running around, and she's, dancing and everything with, the townsfolk, and, they go to the library, they eat cupcakes, they have fun with Maximus, and Maximus keeps giving Flynn this look of, like, hey, I know you like the girl, type of a thing. And, so they're running all over the town and having so much fun, and then right at the end of this dance, it's like this nice I don't remember if it's music, but there's a music playing, but I don't remember if there's like an actual song that happens at this point in time. But everybody in the town is just so happy and everything because it's this huge festival in honor of the lanterns and everything for the princess, because it's like an honor of her birth, and then also this huge festival at the end of the festival, or at sunset, is when like they all get into the boats and they all head out, get into boats or get into different areas around the city, so that way they can all light their lanterns, and they all have like lanterns that they either made or that they bought, that they all light and send up into the sky, along with the king and queen's lantern. And what ends up happening is, Flynn takes her out and he's like, I wanted you to get the best view. And they go out on this boat. And what ends up happening is then we cut to the king and queen. It's just, it's Flynn and Rapunzel and, Flynn, Rapunzel, and Pascal in the boat, because Maximus won't fit, but Flynn got a bunch of apples for Maximus to have. Then we cut to the king and queen, and it's 18 years later after they lost their daughter. They're still heartbroken even after all these years and everything. And the king and queen never actually say anything in the movie. They're one of the rare instances of like Disney parents in regards to that don't actually say anything, at least not in the movie themselves. In the other media, like in the animated series, obviously the king and queen talk in the animated series, but in this case, in the movie itself, they don't talk. And they go out and they send up, this first lantern that then starts floating into the sky. And as the lantern floats up, we watch as because there's people in the courtyard of the castle and lining the streets and on the boats and everything. And as we watch the lantern float up, we, the music starts to happen, of course, and we watch as everybody else slowly lights their lanterns, and the lanterns start to float up and light up and everything, and just spreads throughout the kingdom, this concept of spreading hope. And this is my favorite scene in the entire movie, because it's a love song that we're going to get, but it's also just progression of the story, and this very emotional moment where you see this, the king and queen have missed their daughter for 18 years and still hope that she is alive, and that the lanterns are a way of keeping that hope alive, and also hoping that wherever their daughter is, that she sees them and knows that they are for her, which, in a roundabout way, of course, Rapunzel does think that they are for her. And even if they're not necessarily for her themselves, she still wanted to go and see them, since they happen on her birthday. And I'm sure there's other children in the town that probably in the kingdom that have the same birthday as Rapunzel, but and they probably enjoy watching the lanterns too and everything. And it's the town want the princess to come back. And it's they watch as we watch as the lanterns start floating up, and Rapunzel and Flynn turn, and they've kind of had this conversation about, after I see the lanterns, what do I do next? What happens next? And Flynn's you find a new dream. And that comes into play, of course. But we watch as, Rapunzel starts watching as all the lanterns start floating up. And we get the singing, and this is where we get the song, I See the Light. And this one is a very good contender for my top favorite Disney love song. This one, and I mean, I love, Can You Feel the Love Tonight from Lion King. I love, Kiss the Girl from Little Mermaid. It's one of my favorite Disney love songs. There's other ones that I love, Bella Notte from Lady and the Tramp. And, but this one is at least in my top 10, if not top 5 favorite Disney love songs. And, and that this stretches all the way back through all the Disney movies. Beauty and the Beast, from Beauty and the Beast, take your pick. It's just this I See the Light is either in my top 10 to top 5 favorite Disney love songs. And the sequence itself is just gorgeous, because we see all of these lanterns floating through the sky and lighting up the sky, and floating all around this lake area that they're on, and Rapunzel and Flynn are in the middle of all of this, and Flynn has, these two lanterns for them to send off as well. And, part of the song is Rapunzel's point of view. And then, Flynn is like watching her as she watches all of these lanterns. And, he gives her the lanterns that they can then, send off. And she gives him the satchel. And he like, he's kind of like, forget about the satchel. This is what we're doing right now. And, they send off their lanterns, and we get Flynn singing, or, Eugene singing. And it's, and then we get like the duet part of it as well. And it's like, shifting around in the song, and I love it. And if you like the song, just go listen to the song and then come back and keep watching the video, because I love the song. It's amazing. And right before the end of the song, Rapunzel and Flynn are about to kiss. But unfortunately, Flynn sees on the coast of the lake. That was wrong. On the beach of the lake, he sees the two Stabbington brothers, and he's like, I kind of got to take care of this. And they go over to the beach, and he gets out and he takes the satchel with him. And of course, it's like very foggy at this point in time. And he takes the satchel with him, and he's like, I'll be right back. And he goes, and he, goes to, give the Stabbington brothers the satchel and everything, take the satchel, go, whatever, I don't care. And the two Stabbington brothers then, take Flynn, and they knock him out, and then they like tie him to this boat with like the crown tied in his hand on the steering wheel, and they send the boat off into the, send the boat off drifting. So that way Flynn will then, hit and run into the, one of the guard boats. And, Flynn's knocked out, and Rapunzel, the two Stabbington brothers come to where Rapunzel is, and she, they're like, oh, well, Flynn left and he took the crown with us, but he gave us you or so. And Rapunzel is very, very confused about this. And, Mother Gothel told them, of course, about her magic hair. And they're getting ready to kidnap her. And then, Mother Gothel appears behind them, and then she like knocks both of them out, because that was part of her plan. She knocks both of the Stabbington brothers out. And Rapunzel had seen like the boat going off, and it looked like Flynn was like sailing the boat away. And she thinks that Flynn betrayed her, that Eugene betrayed her, but of course he didn't. And that he's going off, and Mother Gothel knocked out the two thugs, the two Stabbington brothers, and then she is basically just like, come on, Rapunzel, we gotta go. And he, Flynn, betrayed you, whatever, I told you, I won't say I told you so, but kind of I told you so type of thing. And Rapunzel and Mother Gothel then head their way back to the tower. Meanwhile, Flynn's boat reaches the city dock where there's guards, and they recognize him, and he's holding the crown. And they grab him out of the boat, they untie him from the boat, and they take him. And Maximus is there, and he sees what's going on. And he, Flynn is kind of shouting and everything about, no, they've got her, they're going to take her, they're going to hurt her, type of a thing. And Maximus hears this, and Maximus then runs off. Back in the tower, we have it that, Mother Gothel has like gone through and like undone all of the braids in Rapunzel's hair and took out all of the flowers and everything. And she's like, there, we'll act like it never happened. And we'll just go back to the way that things were. And she goes to start making dinner. And Rapunzel pulls out the flag that Eugene bought her with the sun-shaped, royal crest on it. And she's looking at it, and we get this moment where we have this sudden realization from her that, because it's like, of course, throughout the movie, it's like the audience knows that she's the princess, and Gothel knows that she's the princess. But Rapunzel, of course, does not know that she's the princess. And we get this moment where we get this realization from her where she starts looking around her room, and she starts seeing that subconsciously she had painted all of these different symbols into her room, like the symbol of the sun over and over again all over her room. And because of memory she had as a baby, because the mobile she had as a baby had the sun on it, and she remembers like her parents and everything. Now, admittedly, most people cannot remember things from when they were a baby. People that have eidetic memories is one thing, but most people don't usually have memories from when they were a baby. Like, I think the furthest back of a memory I have is maybe like 3 or 4, and for some reason I just remember it was like me jumping up and down on my bed. That's like the oldest memory that I have. I mean, yeah, I have like memories of being like a little kid and like being around my parents or my sister or our dogs, or playing with my cousins, or my being around my aunts and uncles or my grandparents, or being at my daycare and such like that. But like the oldest memories that I have are like me as like a little kid, like being like 3, maybe 4, um, something along those lines. But Rapunzel was like barely a couple of days old when she was kidnapped as a baby. But it's like they have to have this moment where she has like this memory coming into realization of like, I'm the lost princess, and she realizes that she is the lost princess, and the mural that she'd seen at the thing, and like the seeing herself with the crown on her head and everything, is when she remembers all of that. And and then she comes out, and like she had this huge realization, and then this is where her and Mother Gothel have like this, she realizes that Mother Gothel has lied to her the entire time, and that the only thing that was cruel about the world at this point in time was Mother Gothel. She was the cruel one, the selfish one, the wanted to hoard Rapunzel's power, that wanted to keep her there, that didn't actually love Rapunzel, that just loved Rapunzel for her hair. And like we get this moment where they're like, interacting, and like confrontation is happening between Rapunzel and Gothel. And Rapunzel is like, no, I'm going back. I'm going back to the kingdom. I'm going back to the palace. I'm going to go to find my parents and tell them who I really am. And what ends up happening is Rapunzel and Mother Gothel kind of fight, and there's a mirror and it gets shattered, so there's like glass on the floor, and Gothel and Rapunzel kind of, they have this altercation to a degree. And then we cut to where Flynn is in the city, and he was taken to the, he's in the prison cells, and he's going to be taken to be hanged for his crimes, of course, of stealing the crown and everything. Admittedly, stealing a crown seems like being hanged seems like a very extreme crime for stealing a crown. Now I could see back in that time frame, I could see maybe like being hanged if you like murdered a ton of people. I can see being hanged in that time frame if you like murdered a ton of people or something like that, but not for stealing a crown, even if you were a thief to begin with. Thieving so much does not result in like you being deserving of being hanged, but at that time frame it was a little bit more of a stricter law set, depending on what the level of your crime was. And he, as he's being taken through the cells, he sees the 17 brothers there, and they were caught because of course Gothel double crossed them. And he's like, how did you know about her hair? How did you find out about her? And he like grabs him and shakes him, and they're just like, it was the old woman and everything. And it realizes that something is that the woman is going to hurt, that Mother Gothel is the one that has been holding on to Rapunzel and is going to hurt her, and realizes that like her hair like draws on her own power, her own life force, in order to protect, in order to heal or de-age the person she's going to use the power on. I didn't say this before. Ayes has nice Rapunzel shirts. Same artist, link will be in the description. There's also a TARDIS one that has Rapunzel and like the TARDIS, but I don't have that shirt yet. But what ends up happening is Flynn, as he's being dragged through, he sees this little tiny ceramic unicorn sitting on one of the little alcoves. And then he, the door slams shut around him and in front of him with like the guards that are around him, and then like all these thugs from the Snuggly Duckling have showed up to try to help him fight the guards, and like they're bashing into the guards and knocking them out and trampling them and like messing with them, like the mime one does mime stuff, and then they get bowled over by like one of the bigger thugs, and then Flynn gets like knocked out of the window because that's what's supposed to happen. And then the hook hand thug is there, and he's like, okay, feet apart, brace yourself, do this. And then Flynn gets like flung through the air, and he lands on Maximus, who's outside of the tower. And Flynn and Maximus then start running off because Flynn knows where the tower is, of course. And Maximus has a rough idea of where they're going, but Flynn knows where the tower is, so they're racing through racing against time to try to get to where Rapunzel is, because Rapunzel is in danger. And they're running through that and everything. Like at one point, Max even like leaps off part of the walls around the castle, and like onto someone roof, and like running through the air, or not running through the air, but like jumps and like slides down the thing and like runs through town. Like everybody's just like, what the frick is going on here? And like they're just chasing and chasing and running and running and running. And they're making their way to where the tower is, of course. And they get to the tower, and Eugene is, he's gonna climb the tower, but the hair comes down. He gets pulled up on the hair, and when he gets inside, he sees Rapunzel tied up and gagged. She's like chained up, and Gothel lowered the hair down, and she then stabs Flynn in the back, which the reason the film has like a PG rating is because she stabs Flynn. But she stabs Flynn, and he's very much hurt, and he's kind of dying, and Rapunzel is like fighting against the chains and the gags and everything. And she like keeps fighting and kicking and everything. And Rapunzel eventually just like, she kind of gets the gag off of her mouth, and she's like, I will not stop fighting you. I will not. I will continue to fight you every minute for the rest of my life. But if you let me heal him, I will come with you. And I will be good. And Gothel agrees, and she like shackles Flynn to the tower. Shackles Flynn to the inside of the tower. And Rapunzel goes over, and she's getting ready to heal Flynn. And she's gonna use her hair and her singing to heal Flynn. And instead of allowing her to do that, he grabs her hair, and he grabs like this shard of glass from the mirror, and he cuts her hair, of course. And the hair gets cut, and the hair on her head goes brown, and the whole 70-foot long ream of hair starts to go brown, and Gothel's trying to like grab it up and everything, and trying to like gather up whatever is still there, and it like drains her, because like her source of being young keeps getting drained, and she it's draining her, and she's slowly getting older and older and older, and I'd say she goes into like Emperor Palpatine mode, because she like she like drags her hood over her face, and she like ties it shut, and then she like gets like, she's like a cloaked figure that looks like a really old disgusting figure, and she falls out of the window, and she becomes like dust before she even hits the ground. And so she's dead, and Rapunzel is still in the tower trying to heal Eugene, because she's like she puts his hand on her head, and keeps trying to sing the incantation to heal him, and but it's not working and everything, because she doesn't have her hair doesn't have that power anymore, can't be that conduit anymore. And she's like crying and everything, and he's like looking at her, and he's going like, you were my new dream, because like instead of having this island that he wanted from stealing the crown and getting the money, he wanted to see Rapunzel be happy. He wanted to be with Rapunzel, and all that type of thing. So it's like, you were my new dream. And Rapunzel's crying, and of course she cries, and the tear lands on Flynn, and the power of the sun that's still absorbed is there. Absorbs into his skin, and it heals his injury. We get all these lights flying everywhere, and the rays of the sun wrapping around Flynn, and kind of around Rapunzel, and it heals him. And then he's like, I got a thing for, did I ever tell you I have a thing for brunettes? And then they finally kiss. And then we cut to Flynn and Rapunzel have made their way out of the tower, and they've made their way back to the castle, and we see the king and queen, and we see this guard come in, and it's like the guard probably like gives them like this look or something. I was like, the princess is here or something like that, and they come running, and they see Rapunzel and Flynn standing out there, and like we get the moment where like Rapunzel's mother is just like looking at her, and we see the resemblance there, and Rapunzel's mother hugs her. And then Rapunzel's father hugs her, and they're just like, they're so happy, and like they're doing this family hug, and they're so happy that Rapunzel is finally back after 18 years. And they see Eugene, and Rapunzel's mother like holds her hand out to Eugene, and like he just thinks she's gonna shake it, but she pulls him into the hug. So it's like they're hugging, and like everybody's happy. Rapunzel's with her parents where she's supposed to be. She's got Eugene, she's got Pascal. And then we cut to like Flynn kind of narrates the ending. Eugene narrates the ending, and he's like explaining that explain like how Rapunzel ruled the kingdom wisely and benevolently, just as her parents had, and we get like the hook hand guy, like he became a great concert pianist, and like the one thug that wanted to find love found love, and the mime seems happy, and like the other thugs all kind of got to get their dream, like Attila gets like a cupcake place, and like all these other ones like get their dreams of what they wanted to do, and because they were Rapunzel's friends and they helped her. And Flynn says that after years and years of asking, he finally agreed to marry Rapunzel. But then we get, like Rapunzel cutting in going, no, you were the one that finally asked me. And so, we get to see them, living happily ever after. And, we still get to see, like, they still have this, floating lanterns and everything. And, everybody's happy and they kiss one more time. Rapunzel and her parents were extremely happy and everything. Then we get into, that's the end of the movie. There is an end credit song, and I'll go over that in a minute. But for the cast of the movie, we have Mandy Moore as Rapunzel. Mandy Moore has been in quite a few different movies. I think currently she's also been in different TV shows. I think she's in like This Is Us at the moment, but I haven't seen This Is Us. But I think she's in that, and then she's also the other Disney thing that I'm familiar with for Mandy Moore being in is she was in The Princess Diaries with Anne Hathaway and Julie Andrews. She was in the first Princess Diaries movie where she plays like the preppy cheerleader girl that her and Anne Hathaway's character, Princess Mia, don't get along. And it's like this bully character. So she's kind of like come full circle, and now she's a princess too. And then we have Zachary Levi plays Flynn Rider / Eugene Fitzherberts. Zachary Levi, if I remember correctly, if he is who I'm thinking of, in the Thor movies, they've had two actors play the character of Fenrir. So in the first movie, Fenrir is played by Josh Dallas. Josh Dallas then went off to play Prince Charming / David Nolan / Prince James on Once Upon a Time. And that's also a Disney project, obviously. And he plays... he plays, Prince Charming in that, and because of that, he could not be in Thor 2, The Dark World. And Zachary Levi, who had been their original choice to play Fenrir, then got to play Fenrir in that. He also pops up in Thor Ragnarok, but he's around for like 2 minutes, and then he gets stabbed and he dies by Hela. So we have that. Zachary Levi has also been on a few other TV shows. We have Donna Murphy as Mother Gothel. I think she was in a Star Trek movie, one of the Next Generation movies, but I don't remember. We have Brad Garrett as Hook Hand. Brad Garrett has been in a few different variations. He was, of course, the brother on Everybody Loves Raymond. And, a few other things he's been in. We have Ron Perlman and Joe DiMaggio as the Stabbington brothers. Ron Perlman, of course, has been in quite a few things. I think he's Hellboy, and then of course Joe DiMaggio. Just go watch Futurama. He's Bender. The Stabbington brothers. We have Jeffrey Tambor as Big Nose, and then we have Paul F. Tompkins as Shorty, who is the one that's like this little one that gets dressed up as like a Cupid at some point in the movie. Then we have the soundtrack. So we have When Will My Life Begin, which is of course sung by Mandy Moore, and then we have like the reprise of that at one point, and then we have Mother Knows Best, which is of course sung by Donna Murphy. I think mostly everyone who's like the cast in the movie just does their own singing in this movie. And then we have the When Will My Life Begin second reprise, and then we have I've Got a Dream, which is of course Rapunzel and all the thugs. And then we have Mother Knows Best again. And then we have I See the Light, which is of course done by Mandy Moore and Zachary Levi for them singing that. And then we have the Healing Incantation song, which is just sung by Mandy Moore. And then we have Something That I Want, which is the end credits song, which is sung by Grace Parr. And it's just like this fun little like poppy-ish type song, but it's just a fun song to listen to. Trivia for Tangled. I already mentioned the thing about Pascal being named after one of the crew members' actual chameleons. Tangled is also the 50th feature-length animated Disney movie. Yeah, 50th. Yeah, that's a lot of movies up until that point in time. And I think they're, because, let me see here. Because after Tangled, then it's Wreck-It Ralph, Big Hero 6, Frozen, Frozen 2. I know these are not in the exact order. Ralph Breaks the Internet, Zootopia, Moana, Raya and the Last Dragon. So I think we got 2 more, and we're going to be at the 60th Disney animated movie, because the Pixar movies do not count toward that. But yeah, so Tangled was the 50th. We'll see what the 60th one is going to be. And then, of course, in regards to ages, so Eugene is 24 years old. Rapunzel is 18 years old. Due to this, they have the age difference is about 6 years. This is the largest one, except for Milo Thatch and Kida from Atlantis and the Lost Empire, because that is 8,768 year age difference between the 2 of them, with Kida being the older one because of reasons. And during the I See the Light sequence, they used 40,000 lanterns. Yeah, that's a lot of lanterns. Yeah. So, development. The story of trying to do Rapunzel, or a variation of Rapunzel, had been around at the Disney theater since like Walt Disney's time. Walt Disney had wanted to do a variation of Rapunzel. But obviously it wouldn't have ended up being the same Rapunzel that we have now, because at that point in time it probably would have been a little bit closer to like the actual fairy tale, because of course the story for Rapunzel is this, her parents are these poor people and they live next door to this witch, and the witch wants, the mother, Rapunzel's mother, is very hungry and she's, craving these certain things, and the father tries to steal stuff, but the witch catches him. He's like, well, you can take those, but in exchange I want the child. And, then Rapunzel is born, and Rapunzel just means lettuce, which I find hilarious. And Rapunzel gets taken by the witch, and the witch then raises Rapunzel and keeps her in the tower. And Rapunzel eventually, the prince eventually finds his way into the tower by climbing the hair, and he meets Rapunzel and they fall in love, and he continuously comes and visits her. And then at one point the witch cuts off Rapunzel's hair and, banishes Rapunzel, and then the prince ends up, if I remember correctly, it's been a while since I've read the Rapunzel fairy tale, the actual fairy tale, but like Rapunzel and the prince, they fell in love, but then, like they're separated because like Rapunzel gets banished, and then the prince gets, brought back up in the tower, and then the witch blinds him or something, and then he like wanders around for a while, and eventually he finds Rapunzel again, or Rapunzel finds him, and she has like 2 children that are his or something like that, and she cries tears into his eyes, and that heals his eyes, and then they're married. So Rapunzel has a little bit of a different story in regard to that, obviously, but in 1996 they had wanted to do like Tangled Unbraided, which was going to be done by Glenn Keane, who is also like the Little Mermaid type thing, and was also in the process when he was developing Tarzan. They had wanted to do a different variation of it, where it's a little bit more of like a modern day story, and then it like got flipped, and the 2 main characters somehow ended up in the past. And the main character was going to be named after Glenn Keane's daughter. It was going to be like the Rapunzel type character. But it kind of got shelved, and then eventually it got made. But they had wanted to, dealing with that and doing a little bit more of an updated version of the fairy tale, making Rapunzel a much more strong and independent character, given like slowly like Snow White and Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty, as much as I love them, they're not extremely independent characters. I mean, like, yeah, Snow White, could have probably quite survived on her own a while in the forest and such like that, but they're portrayed a little bit more of like, oh, they need the prince to save them. Rapunzel is kind of capable of saving herself, and we kind of see that more and more with the Disney princesses as things go on. And of course, later on, we have Elsa, who does not have a prince. We have Moana, who does not have a prince. And now we have Raya, who does not have a prince. And one of the things that they said is like when they were going to have like, the Pixar was going to animate the studio, or was going to animate Tangled. It's the first Disney movie that is the princess movie being computer animated. And it's like the idea of changing the title of a classic like Rapunzel to Tangled is beyond stupid. I'm convinced they'll gain nothing from it except the public seeing Disney as desperately trying to find an audience. But, thankfully they went with Tangled, and I like that. Um, you know, I like the name Tangled. It's fun. So I still have some other stuff to go over, but that's going to be in the next video because there's enough stuff to go over to make another video out of this in regards to Rapunzel and Tangled. So, and this is already at like an hour and 16 minutes with me recording, and there's a tiny bit that I got to chop out. So it's a little bit long, it's about where I like to put the videos for the most part. But there's enough because there's like the short and the series and Once Upon a Time and some other stuff that I want to talk about in regards to Rapunzel. That's where we have the end of this. For this specific video of Rapunzel, then there'll be another one. Yeah. I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. And always make sure that you have your trusty frying pan with you in case you need to knock out any thugs or fight a horse that has a sword. Bye. I've been looking out a window for 18 years, dreaming about what I might feel like when those lights rise in the sky. What if it's not everything I dreamed it would be? It will be. And what if it is? What do I do then? Well, that's the good part, I guess. You get to go and find a new dream.